Yes, and once again, witness another day in the series of our days of event marking the 2022 Nigerian Bar Association Uso branch, Norway. May God Almighty see us through. My Lord, the Chief Justice of the State, Chief Judge of the State, I beg your pardon. Justice Kulu Ali OFR, my Lord, Justice Bello Shekari, who is also the chairman of this sitting, with the permission of His Lordship Justice Kulu Ali OFR, my Lord, Justice Bello Tuko, my Lord, Justice Bello Kucheri, my Lord, Justice Habib Mikaelu, our distinguished guest, whom I will have to find another time to introduce properly. You are welcome to this very important program. First of all, I want to give. Okay. I really wanted that to come after the opening prayer, after giving glory to God Almighty, but with your permission, I will do it that way. I will invite Chief Registrar Sharia High Court to please give us an opening prayer. Sir.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وسلم كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم اني اسالك باني اشهد انك انت الله لا اله الا انت الاحد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا احد. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. wannan taro Allah ka sa ya lafiya, kare lafiya, alkhairan da a cikin shi Allah ka tabbatar muna, aksi kuma Allah ka bai da shi alkhairi. Ya Allah, wannan hali da muke ciki, wannan kasa ta mu, Allah ka dawo mana da wurin zaman lafiya, Allah ya zama da mu lafiya, Allah ya dawo mana da zaman lafiya. ربنا هب لنا من ازواجنا وذريتنا قرة اعين وجعلنا للمتقين اماما. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, sir. My Lord, I seek your permission to properly introduce the members of the high table, which happens to be the second item on the agenda. In our midst, my Lord, like I've already said, is the Chief Judge of the State, Justice Kulu Aliyu. You are welcome, Your Lordship. We also have in our midst Justice Bello Shinkafi. My Lord, you are highly welcome. We have in our midst also today, gracing this occasion, Justice Bello Tukur. My Lord, you are highly welcome. Also Justice Bello Kucheri, who presented a very marvelous paper yesterday at one of our programs. My Lord, you are highly welcome. Justice Habib Mikaelu is also here with us. My Lord, you are highly welcome. We also have the controller of the Nigeria Immigration Service, in person of Ibrahim Balarabe. He has answered our call. You are most welcome, sir. We have also Thomas Abang, Assistant Commander, who is representing the Commandant of Federal Satiko. You are most welcome, sir. We have Barrister Jafar Muhammad, representing Commissioner of Police. He's wearing two caps today, a lawyer and a police at the same time. So you are most welcome, sir. My Lord, with your permission, I also want to recognize the presence of the Chief Registrar of the High Court of Justice, Barrister Surajo Aliyu. You are most welcome, sir. Our learned magistrates, the Chief Magistrate here present, the Directors of the High Court of Justice, and most especially the presenter of today's paper, Mr. P.M. Lasco. You are most welcome, sir. Today's event is paper presentation, as I believe you must have seen in the invitation. And the presenter, like I rightly said, is Barrister P.M. Lasco. At a crucial time in the history, like today, politics has taken large of our life endeavors, which therefore necessitates a program like this at which discussion about politics is open. Because whether we like it or not, we are all stakeholders as contestants or as voters, or in whatever capacity you think you are. Discussion about politics become an often thing. And especially that NBA being an organ that always wants to checkmate the activities of those in position, will want to have a clear understanding of how the roles of those in government are supposed to be played and whether there are advice to be given so that things will go well in the administration of justice first and in governance generally. My Lord, let me quickly go to the second item, the third item on the agenda, which is welcome address by the chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association in person of Barsa Junaidu Abakar. You are most welcome, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My Lord, the Honorable Chief Judge of Zamfara State, Honorable Justice Kulu Aliyu OFR, my Lords, other judges of the Zamfara State High Court of Justice here present, the Controller of Correctional Service, Zamfara State Command, the representative Immigration, sorry, I beg your pardon. The Controller of the Nigerian Immigration Service here with us, the representative of the Zamfara State Controller of the Nigerian Road Safety Service, Federal Road Safety Corps, the representative of the Commissioner of Police, the presenter of today's paper, our senior colleague in person of PM Lasco Esquire, the Chief Registrar of the Zamfara State High Court of Justice, the Chief Magistrate, Zamfara and other magistrates here with us, senior members of the bar, my colleagues, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I begin with expressing our gratitude to Almighty Allah for sparing our lives and giving us the opportunity to be here. May the blessings of Allah be open to the most noble of mankind, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions in the last day. My Lord, here we are today at this hour for a public lecture presentation titled The Cordial Relationship Between the Legislature, Executives, and the Judiciary Arms of Government. The Nigerian Bar Association Gusau branch, in its effort to make its own contribution for the good governance of Zamfara State, we deem it necessary to open ourselves to make this paper, and we have carefully gone through our members, and eventually we selected Mr. PM Lasco to deliver this paper. Mr. PM Lasco is a very experienced legal practitioner here in Gusau, and he has a wide range of knowledge and experiences in both litigations and otherwise. My Lord, these three arms of government, as we know, are provided for under the Nigerian Constitution. It is otherwise known as a doctrine of separation of powers. The principle of separation of powers under the Constitution is made to guarantee good governance and development and to prevent abuse of power. Political liberty is to be found when there is no abuse of power, but constant experience shows everyone invested with power is liable to abuse and carry his authority as far as it will go. As highlighted above, therefore, the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria envisages and does specifically provide for three arms of government, that is the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. The Constitution is founded upon the well-cherished principle of separation of powers, and by virtue of that principle, neither the executive nor the judiciary can interfere with or take away from the legislature's functions that are strictly and exclusively assigned thereto by the Constitution. In the same vein, the legislature has no power to usurp the function that are exclusively and strictly provided and assigned thereto by the Constitution. The three arms of government are by the provision of the Constitution under an onerous duty to work with one another in a harmonious and congenial atmosphere for the purpose of promoting good government and welfare of the persons in our country on the principle of freedom, equity, and justice, and for the purpose of consolidating the unity of our people. My Lord, it is in our Constitution that the doctrine of separation of powers in the 1999 Constitution provides for the three branches of government, as I have said earlier and enumerated them. To each of these three arms of government, the Constitution has assigned distinct and well-defined roles, duties, and responsibilities to the legislature, both at the national and the state level. The responsibility to enact laws for the peace, order, prosperity, and the good government of the people. Thank you. So, gentlemen, I employ every one of us to listen to the paper to be presented, and I wish us a successful deliberation. Thank you so much.
To be removed. Let me quickly move to the next, which is the main issue. The main reason for being here, which is the presentation by Mr. P.M. Lesko. I would therefore have as God pleases. Like I said earlier, this presentation will be chaired by Mrs. Bello Shinkafi. I would therefore have the privilege of inviting Mrs. Bello Shinkafi to continue chairing the meeting. Thank you very much. My Lord, Honorable Justice Habib Mikaelu, my Lord, Honorable Justice Bello Kucheri, the Controller, Nigerian Military Service, the representative of the Commissioner of Police, the representative of the Commandant of the Federal Safety Corps. It was about 15 minutes ago that my Chief Judge directed MBA chairman that instead of her, I should chair this occasion. I consider that as a great honor. Chief Judge is here, to share anything that happens here. So it is an honor. The paper presented is a cordial relationship between the legislature, executive, and judiciary arms of government. It is to be presented by Mr.
PM Lasco. I have known Mr. Lasco for over 30 years, and I'm sure I will not be disappointed. I don't want to preempt, I've read the paper in fact, perfunctorily of course. I don't want to preempt what Mr. Lasco will say, but I'm sure he will not disappoint the Honorable Chief Judge or us or anybody that is opportune to be here. So without much ado, I'd like to call on Mr. Lasco to come and present today.
Fairness and impartiality come into play, where judges come in and make some pronouncements that eventually become law. They are the guardians of the Constitution. Enforcement of decisions and judgments. Special role. A very special role if there is a dispute between the two arms of government, the other two arms of government. The judiciary will serve as an arbiter to resolve those disputes. Running of judicial administration, advisory functions. The President of Nigeria, for instance, can refer any issue of law or fact, issues of public importance, to the Supreme Court to make a pronouncement. To conduct judicial inquiries. The executive often appoint judicial inquiries from the judiciary to perform those functions. Miscellaneous functions, appointments of trustees, guardians, and so forth. Arising from the constitutional provisions, there is a clear separation of powers among the three arms of government, sustained on the principle of checks and balances, such that each of the three arms can act as a watchdog over the other. The essence is that neither the legislature nor the executive or the judiciary should dominate one another and should function in cooperation with each other. In the case of our lawsuits, Ude against Joseph Ojeseme and another, reported in 1995, 8 Nigeria Appeal Law Report, Part 412, page 155. The Supreme Court pronounced on the doctrine of separation of powers when it considered the constitutionality of the action of the government of Anambra State setting up a peace committee under section 215 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic and held as follows. High Court. The executive, legislature, and judiciary are each established as a separate organ of government by the Constitution of Nigeria 1979. The powers of each organ are expressly stated, and an organ cannot usurp the functions of the other. The object of the Constitution in establishing three arms of government is to avoid the concentration of power in one hand, and that each should be independent of the other so that the action of one should not be controlled by the other. However, Section 4, Section 8 of the Constitution makes the legislative answerable in the courts and tribunals established by law for any allegation of breaches of the Constitution in the exercise of the legislative powers. This legislature does over the judiciary. There is no doubt that the military government, which now exercises both legislative and executive powers, can enact laws depriving the courts of jurisdiction, which have been given them, but it cannot assume the power of adjudicate, power to adjudicate. Now, even under the military rule, it is only the judiciary arm of government that has remained alive and functioning. There is no way they can assume that function of adjudication. And even though they can make laws then to oust the jurisdiction of the court, but it cannot assume the powers to sit to adjudicate. So judiciary, it's very, very necessary in the functions of these other two arms of government. Most recently, in practical demonstration of the evaluatory functions of the three arms of government, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, issued Presidential Executive Order number 10 of 2020 to implement the financial autonomy for state legislatures and the judiciary. The question whether the said order was constitutional ended up in the Supreme Court in the case of Abia and AG, Abia State and others, against AG of the Federation. The case is reported in the year 2022, LPELR 57010 Supreme Court. Though, by a majority decision of 4-3, the Supreme Court held the said executive order to be unconstitutional. A remarkable and profound pronouncement was made by Abba Adi, JS, while dissenting inter alia as follows. Although the President and the Executive cannot assume legislative role and functions to make laws for the Federation, a presidential executive order is made subject to the Constitution and for the execution and the maintenance of this Constitution, and not to subvert the Constitution or derogate from its provisions. The Constitution remains supreme, and any law or order contrary to it shall stand unconstitutional and void to the extent of its inconsistency. In Zamfara State, His Excellency Right Honorable Bello Mohammed, the Executive Governor of Zamfara State, as in exercise of his constitutional powers, issued some series of executive orders for the purpose of good governance during the period of COVID-19, pandemic, and insecurity. My lords and distinguished colleagues, it is apparent that in practical terms, for the sustenance of harmonious and cordial relationship between the three arms of government, it entails the following. 1, there must be no interference with the affairs of one arm by the other. Very, very important. 2, no arm should discharge more than one function. And 3, no arm should exercise the functions of another. Therefore, the three arms of government must operate differently and distinctively. No member of one arm is allowed to be a member of the other. In other words, in order to guard against tyranny, despotism, territorialism, and in government, each of the three arms must operate within its constitutional allotted spheres of responsibilities. In the final analysis, it will be more viable and beneficial for the three arms to collaborate constructively to engineer the policy making and implementation process with a view to promoting egalitarian society. And reach between the three arms, which is normal with human beings, and this has also played out in our democracy. The three arms supremacy. However, the panacea is that delivery of the government policy. A famous English scholar, Sir John Dalbert Acton, the power tends to corrupt. And absolute power of absolutely in dialogue and resolving their differences instead of resorting to outright confrontation that usually develops the newspaper will provoke discussion and debate, and that is why I do need it very this issue for the benefit of our state and the country at large. Thank you.
And I commend Mr. Losco for his eloquent presentation. I'm sure, I hope whenever he's called upon to. Before I finish, I would like to recognize the presence of our law students. I hope young students one day or be the chairman of this occasion, or even be the chief judge of this state.
The Commandant of the Road Safety Corps, representative of the Commissioner of Police, participants, and our children, students of Zakas. Honestly, I do not intend to say anything in respect of this paper because of the sensitive nature of the paper. I am a judicial officer. So whatever I say, maybe one day, this issue of executive, legislature, and judicial arms of government will come before the court. So if I say anything now, I say, well, I've already spoken. I've made up my mind. So I do not intend to make any comment. The floor is open to the participants to ask questions or to make contributions if they have them. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think you start from here and so if any of the members of the House will have some
From what my chief said, and decline comments. Having regards to the nature of my job, like he said, something like this will come up before me today, tomorrow. What will I do? Okay, my lord do not have any comments.
Members of the ITO, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my controllers. Sorry, I really enjoyed this paper that was presented, and I think we are familiar with the three arms of government. Okay, my name is Assistant Corps Commander Thomas Abba. I'm representing the Federal Road Safety Corps and Parate Sector Command. We are familiar with the three arms of government and their functions. I think our problem is as the guest lecturer stated, is on the issue of checks and balances. Do we accept corrections? Do we accept them? That is the most important thing about this cordial relationship within the three arms of government. If you say A, you have done this, A will put up argument that he has not done wrong. And at the end of it, it's like we will now end up in a situation where the one that has control over the means of physical violence now begin to appear as if it is the most supreme. So we need this understanding. We need this understanding to know the boundary of each arm of government, to know what to do. The respect to be accorded to each other. and to accept our fault. On it. This law is to make us live happily. So I appreciate the lecture that was delivered, and I pray that each one of us will have the mind to respect the law, respect the three arms of government, and to understand how they operate, so that Nigeria. Thank you very much.
My Lord, the Chief Judge of Zamfara State, my Lord, the High Court judges here present, Your Worships, the Magistrate Courts, the magistrates here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues, students of Zamfara State College of Legal and Islamic Studies. I want to apologize for coming late. I came in yesterday. Yeah, sorry. As God pleases, my Lord. My name is Rashidat Mohammed. I am the Secretary, MBA Sokoto branch, and I'm here to represent my branch. Like all the judges have said that they don't want to make comments regarding the paper. I must confess that the presenter has done justice to this paper, and while I was going through the paper, I was overwhelmed, and I was glad to be part of this program today. My call regarding this paper, despite the fact that the other arms were not here, that's the executive and the legislative arm of the government are not here, but I believe this message can be taken to them. Like the presenter said, none of them can function without each other. But where the problem is the quest for supremacy. A particular arm feels he has power to do and undo. And that makes the other arm not to be able to function to the betterment of our people. What I'm trying to say in essence is you and I. Their existence is for the common man. And the only way, they are there to serve us. And the only way they can do that is when there is check and balances. But who is going to check who? Because sometimes you realize that even the three arms sometimes need to be checked. And when they discover each other's weak points through that check and balances, then they think to sweep everything in the name of peace. And I believe in justice, not peace. Because without justice, there will not be peace. So I usually tell people that don't see me as a troublemaker, I make trouble for justice. Because that is where peace can only come in. Now I want to conclude by saying that as MBA, we should see ourselves as mouth. We didn't make ourselves there. It's by God's grace we got there. And everywhere we found ourselves, we should always remember that we are going to be held accountable for our actions and inactions. So if you are saying a particular arm of government is not doing the right thing, and we decide to keep quiet because we are benefiting something from that, we will for sure account for it where nobody will come to our aid. So I must commend the organizers of this gathering. I commend the MPAs and branch chairman. History is going to be kind to you, sir, and thank you so much. I must confess that the presenter has done justice to this paper, and while I was going through the paper, I was overwhelmed, and I was glad to be part of this program today. My call regarding this paper, despite the fact that the other arms were not here, that's the executive and the legislative arm of the government are not here, but I believe this message can be taken to them. Like the presenter said, none of them can function without each other. But where the problem is the quest for supremacy. A particular arm feels he has power to do and undo. And that makes the other arm not to be able to function to the betterment of our people. What I'm trying to say in essence is you and I. Their existence is for the common man. And the only way, they are there to serve us. And the only way they can do that is when there is check and balances. But who is going to check who? Because sometimes you realize that even the three arms sometimes need to be checked. And when they discover each other's weak points through that check and balances, then they think to sweep everything in the name of peace. And I believe in justice, not peace. Because without justice, there will not be peace. So I usually tell people that don't see me as a troublemaker, I make trouble for justice. Because that is where peace can only come in. Now I want to conclude by saying that as MBA, we should see ourselves as mouth. We didn't make ourselves there. It's by God's grace we got there. And everywhere we found ourselves, we should always remember that we are going to be held accountable for our actions and inactions. So if you are saying a particular arm of government is not doing the right thing, and we decide to keep quiet because we are benefiting something from that, we will for sure account for it where nobody will come to our aid. So I must commend the organizers of this gathering. I commend the MPAs and branch chairman. History is going to be kind to you, sir. And thank you so much.
From yesterday to today, the presentations were marvelous. Mr. Lasko, who made this one today, I will agree with me, he has helped in breaking down all the tentacles of separation of power and watered it down for us to drink. And that's what we are supposed to be doing. That is to put it open and discuss it very diligently, without necessarily saying things that are not supposed to be said. Even though I said private lawyers, like Rashida said, are supposed to say a lot, because they always say a lot. So, but even as we are saying that, because of the personality in our midst, I would advise that we should say what the right thing is. Saying things that are not supposed to be said, based on lack of evidence, lack of reasons to say that, will have no place in our midst. So I advise you, or I urge you to, if any of you has any comment to make, answer, any questions or comments.
My name is a private lawyer from Federal Criminal Corporation. Mine is just an observation. So I read that to the end of the paper, in nowhere the executive, legislature, or judiciary are defined. I think it is very important before doing proper into the paper to decide who are the executives, who are the legislators, and who are the judiciaries. Number one. Secondly, you made mention of executive order for layman who doesn't know the executive order. Nowhere the executive order is defined. You also cited example of executive order issued by Mr. President. And secondly, you made mention that the executive governor of Zamfara State issued numbers of executive orders without mentioning anyone. My second observation is but we ended up inviting only judiciary. I think it would have been better to invite, I don't know whether you were invited very soon. But from the look of things,
you came late.
Okay.
You came late, yes.
Okay, these are my observations.
The presentation of the paper, it clearly shows the need for the amendment of the Constitution because it gives too much power to the executive. They have the power, they play a role in the appointment of judges, and they have the power to control the finances
and the welfare of the judges as well as the legislature, which gives them power to corrupt our members of the legislative as well as the executive. So there is need for the constitution to be amended to give the legislative and the judiciary their independence. That's my contribution.
A private legal practitioner in the law firm of the Salis and Co. I want to first of all show gratitude to the NPA branch and our speakers and special guests of honor. Although I came very late, from the presentation I've gone through, we have seen the functions of the executive, the legislatures, and the judiciary. We know that it is the function of the legislatures to enact law or to make law, while it is the responsibility of the executive to enforce the law. So now, my question is this. We know in the Constitution, the executive, they have these executive functions. Like I know the last one, Mr.
KC2, assessment now.
Important that we should draw a demarcation between executive orders that are in violation with the prohibition of the Constitution, that is interrupting into the power of the legislators, and those that are not. That is to support what Kamala has just said. There are certain legislations that are empowering executives to do such things. But I'm not ignorant of the fact that any law that is concerned with the Constitution, that law is null and void. So, but I think the presenter needs to give a highlight on that. So before that, if any person has any other question, okay. To
play within the delineated responsibilities by the Constitution. They are sufficient. It is just that it is the nature in the human being, the frailty in the human being to grasp power that leads to such conflicts and rifts amongst the three arms of government. I'm sure that if we can implement the Constitution as it is, there will be no problem in the workings of the three arms of government. That is for the first question. Now, on the issue of executive order, executive order 10 had been declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. But there are also a number of executive orders that His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, has issued and they are working. For instance, Executive Order 11 has been also issued by His Excellency and is working. Now, the only thing as become that His Lordship, Albert Adi said, that once such orders are made for the maintenance of the Constitution and good governance, they remain valid. It's where there is inconsistency that they remain, that they become void. As long as they are not inconsistent with the provisions of the law, the Constitution and any law, they remain valid. Now, the intervention by the executive in such situations is not as if they are actually enacting laws. Now, the fundamental principle in Order 10 is to give adequate independence to the judiciary and the legislature. But in their wisdom, 4 against 3, they turn it down. But honestly, there has been a very good law for the operation of this three arms of government. So, executive orders are just intervention by the executive to make laws for the good governance of the federation and the states. So that's it. Thank you, sir. The MC noted there are several arms that give the executive such powers to act. Our Lordship has been enacting laws. The rules of our court is enacted by my Lord. It's not a legislation, but it has become law. So those are the overlapping functions in the three arms of government. Thank you.
Such rules for the good governance of the courts. The Grand Decadi also has in his own capacity the power to make rules for the Sharia court and so many other things. But however, we should remember that the main law that established those courts was passed or were passed by various assemblies, maybe the National Assembly and the State House of Assemblies. In that law, they usually provide for the power for those head of such institutions to carry out what is called delegated legislation. They were given their own power, delegating their own power to various heads of institutions, thereby making additional laws that will now make such an institution to perform effectively. Take for examples about the state high courts or the Sharia court. The Grand Decadi has the power to make rules by the law establishing the Sharia courts. It was that law that now says the Grand Decadi has the power to make rules for the good governance of the Sharia courts. So that's what is called delegated legislation. It is the main legislation that now gives the power to the executive that are in charge of that particular law to now make additional laws that will now benefit the entire system so that it will perform function effectively. Let's take another example, like for example, where we have an institution, academic institution, we have zakas, we have scholars, and so many other institutions. The law only establishes the school, but it will delegate the power for the executive or the head of the institution to now make other laws that will now allow the institution to perform effectively, like creating departments in respective schools under the main law, and thereby making rules and regulations for the conduct of examination and so many other things. So I don't know what I want to ask, whether such delegated legislation can also be considered like maybe the power
to us. So it is allowed, the overlapping functions in the three arms of government. It's allowed even by the Constitution.
My Lord, Nigerian Bar Association Chairman of Sub Branch, distinguished personalities from the higher table, my learned seniors and colleagues, good day to you all. My name is Abubakar Lawal Abubakar, the President of the Law Student Association of Nigeria Law Center Chapter. I wish to use this golden opportunity to extend my gratitude to the Nigerian Bar Association for the contribution rendered to our dear association, and also to thank them for involving their genius and their children as part of their activities. Lastly, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to strengthen their capacity toward legal profession and humanitarian. And God bless you.
We don't have any reason to really appreciate for this